All right, so you want to do an aggressive orchestral tutti. So having everybody play together the same line. Does it mean to just like do doublings and doublings and doublings and doublings and doublings? Probably yes at first, but maybe then you can realize, well, just doing doublings might sound heavy in the end. So I'll show you the whole process of like adding these doublings on the same theme, the same melody. It's not much of a melody, it's more like a motif that is developed into a theme. So I'm starting with the strings and going through the whole orchestra. And this approach is really important if you're doing like action films, if you're doing like hybrid orchestral music. How can you use the whole orchestra to its best extent? There's this famous quote that less is more, but not quite in that case, right? We need a little bit more to have enough, right? Enough kind of effects. But when it's too much is what you need to know. And how can you add a lot without it feel too much? This is what I'm going to show you today. On a quick note, guys, I'm super happy to announce that I'm in the YouTube Partner Program now. This means that I can offer even more on my channel. Stay on the lookout because in February I will announce new subscription possible for my followers, where you can have access of my scores, private comments on your work. And also if you just want to support the channel, you can send me super likes now, which is just a way to send me a tip, which is always much appreciated. But anyway, now let's go and see the video that I prepared today in a computer. Okay, so this is the melody we have. This is only the first violin part, actually, and this is where I began. So for a tutti, you have to choose first the basic register, so the first register where you want to focus this melody on. So I chose the middle register around the B. It's B minor in the beginning, and it goes up to the octave around here. We basically go up and down around this register a little bit, but mostly it's a great register for the violins. It's all going to be played on their lowest string, which can be performed fortissimo, like the dynamic that is indicated. So that's perfect. And it's all a spiccato, so very strong attacks. All notes are to be bowed up and down, so to create as strong as an effect as possible. So let's listen to it first, and I'll comment the different themes and motifs that I use here. Okay, so a melody that starts pretty much in the same register, it feels like it is going to be a first representation of this segment, and then the second one should be around the same. But then right at the end, around here, the triplets brings us somewhere else. So we kind of go into the diminished chord here with the D sharp and the F sharp, touching the E sharp as well. And then we got a bunch of different syncopations around here, which create this very uneven kind of rhythmic feeling. And right up until the end where there's this scale going up, finishing back on the B. So I decided to have a first part that is more predictable and then a second part that is more unpredictable, only for us to land back on our feet right at the end. So this is just a lot of like dynamism in 8-bar. Like maybe if it's a longer piece, I would have done something like and then repeat this maybe, or maybe have it a little bit somewhere else, but stay around the B a little bit longer. But just for the sake of this exercise, I wanted to present you something a little bit more changing. There's also the fact that there are groups of 3 here. So this kind of feeling of 3 against 2 creates a lot of dynamism, and ending also with the triplet followed by 16 notes at the end. It really gives this theme is character, and I'm trying to exploit this up until the end, because otherwise just a simple motif, I mean, would not have been so interesting. But with all of these different rhythmic patterns, I made it interesting, right? Okay, so we got this first for the violins. And the first thing I want to do here is transpose this to the string orchestra again. This is usually what I do for this kind of exercise. So I want all the string orchestra to be there at first, playing these notes. We just have to choose the right octave for them to play it in. So here's my first version for the strings. So the original line is on the first violin. Notice the second violin is also playing the same thing, exactly the same thing. And also the viola is playing exactly the same thing. It's just so happens that the viola is also a perfect register for this melody. It's just instead of playing it on its lowest string, it's going to play it on its second lowest string, which is totally fine. The idea between this kind of tutti, aggressive tutti, it's good to have as much of the strings on the same pitch as possible, especially if you want to focus on this register. So let's just listen to actually the violins and the viola. So we got exactly the same as we had with only the first violin, but only stronger now. But you get a lot more perspective to the sound. So in that case, the violin first are mixed to the left. The second violin is a little bit more mixed to the right. The viola a little bit more mixed behind. They also have a different timbre, a different number of performers as well. So this gives a lot of like a new dimension to this. Now let's go back to the full string orchestra. So we see the cello, I added the lowest octave, one octave lower, just to give it a little bit of depth. And then the double bass, I give it one octave lower. So what you see here is actually heard an octave lower than the cello. But you do see here that some of the notes, instead of sending them down in the double bass as well, to have like super low notes, I'm just trying to send them up. It's just so that we can still focus on this register instead of the really low register. And now, especially on these accents, there's a silence after that. So it's kind of moments like this where I wanted a little bit more focus on my sound, on my like upper line, just so that we keep this in control, and that we, especially the double bass in this register, is super low. So it's just gonna add a lot of oomph, which we don't necessarily need so much in this. It could sound really good only with the cello with this, but the double bass, if you want the whole string orchestra, might as well add in the double bass. Just make sure you don't get too much of low notes. Like the problem if I would send this an octave higher is a little bit high for the double bass. This is actually much more comfortable for the instrument and just adds the right amount of low end. So let's listen to all of my strings. So it already sounds pretty good. Not only the strings, they can really give this theme really good character, a strong character. But we don't want to end here. So for this first version, for my other instruments, the rest of the orchestra, there's at first I wanted to focus on who could do this this full line. So surely the low trombones, it's a little bit hard for them to play. It might make the sound real heavy. So to have this kind of thing, dun 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 dun, to follow more or less the general line, and I'm not adding any note. I'm just having the trombone play on and off, the trombones and the bass trombones. Also the horns, it's actually doing exactly the same thing, and they're all playing octave, so they're not adding any kind of new sound. It's just when the E comes in, then they all play the E. When the B comes in, they all play the B. When you got another B here, then the B flat, and then they all play B flat, right? Some people would have like added in a new note here, but no, we're doing a tutti. We're trying to have the whole orchestra do different versions of this theme. So we're just using the notes that we have here at first, right? So the trumpets are not used here because it's too low for them. I could have bring them right at the end, maybe just for this, but in that case, it's not worth it. You don't want to have the trumpets come in just for da 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 da, just for like 4 notes here. It wouldn't necessarily make sense if they weren't there before. And then also the timpani is playing more or less with the brasses, and timpani and brasses have this long love story together. They play a lot together. They sound really great together. And the timpani is doing a little bit more rhythmic part here, pum 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 pum, but still accentuating with sforzando the notes with the brasses. So let's just maybe listen to the timpani and the brasses here. So already gives us a good rhythmic pattern. And then up to the woodwinds, like the flutes here and the oboe, it's just a bad register for them. It's like some of these notes cannot be played by the flute, and even the oboe, it cannot play the low A here. So actually I used the English horn here, the cor anglais, which is perfect register for this instrument, the whole melody actually. So it just plays all the way through. And I'm not adding again like the flute, like the trumpets, I'm not adding the flutes in this part here, and then not the oboe as well. So using the bassoon, contrabassoon, bass clarinet, and clarinets for this. So the contrabassoon is playing the double bass part, and then these two bass clarinet and bassoons are playing the cello part. The clarinet and the English horn are playing the high violin part. So now we just listen to our woodwinds here. And finally, all of our instruments together for this first version. So this first version is pretty basic. So this was my plan: basic doublings, some octave lowers, and layered brasses. So the brasses are layered. The brasses aren't the same, but the notes are the same. It's just the rhythms that are a little bit different. But it's really basic, and it's a little bit heavy, in my opinion. I would have tried to have this version without the contrabassoon. Maybe let's just take off the contrabassoon and also the double bass. And let's see how it sounds. Probably less heavy, right? So a little bit more agile, a little bit less, big sound in the low end. But still, the fact that everybody's playing pa 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 pa, all the same notes is what's triggering me in this kind of tutti. If of course it's supposed to be a tutti, but how can we make this tutti better? So let's see my second version. What I did. The second version, I wanted to have doublings focused on main motifs. So that's what I did with here. The doublings are more here. So the violins and the viola, this is exactly the same as the previous version. And we have also our English horn and clarinet that are still there. But now my lowest part here, let's focus just on the cellos and the double bass. They are playing with my brasses. It's actually by doing my brasses, my first layer of brasses, that made me think, oh, this might be a good way to use my low end. Just chum, 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 chum. to have this also with the strings, also with the low woodwinds, the bass clarinet, bassoon, contrabassoon, etc. And these are mostly like I'm reusing some of these lines from the brasses and transposing them there, but also making sure like that I don't go too low with my double bass. I'm not going too low with my trombone, my tuba. I'm sorry, my bass trombone as well, my contrabassoon. So a little bit more focus here. Let's just listen to this second version. So a much more focused version than the first. The first became a little bit too blurry at some point with just this all of this low end, and it became a problem for me. It's already starting to sound a little bit more with definition, and so you see, it's an orchestral tutti that's supposed to play this line together. The fact that I'm using the same notes but just having some of the notes muted, it's like you mute some of the notes to have just these timbre come at different moments to create this rhythm, but still you still feel just like one big thing, because everybody's following this, and when there's a note changing, it's because the note's changing in the main melody, like the B flat here changing here, the D here changing, the A changing here, and that's a big tool to unify the orchestra in a tutti, even though they're not playing the same thing. You're trying to layer different kinds of rhythms together. So with that in mind, let's go to a third version now and see what I wanted to do here. Okay, so my first version is a little bit more dense, as you can see. My strings are basically the same. I was satisfied in my second versions of my strings. The upper theme that was there with my violins and viola, and also these accents that were there with my cello and double bass. This is also still there with the timpani, still there with the trombones, still there with my horns, still there with my low woodwinds. But then what's different here is I added in a new register. And then that wasn't there in the theme before, but when you're orchestrating a melody, you shouldn't feel stuck to the register of the original, like piano reduction of the original idea. You just need to wonder, how much do I want this this theme to be in the front, or do I want it to be in the back? So in that case, it's going to be pretty much still in the front. There's a lot of strings that are playing this still, and it's from the second version, and it's a great foundation for adding some little stuff over it. So the stuff over are going to be played by the trumpets. They're going to be played by the oboe as well, the flutes and the piccolo. So these three instruments are not necessarily going to be louder than all of this big section that is also doubled by the English horn and clarinet still. But they're going to be in this higher register, which they're the only ones who are going to be there. So surely we will hear them a little bit more. And now let's look at the different notes that I use. So let's see first the oboe. I'm using the B an octave higher from the original theme. And not just all the notes, just some of the notes. But still I'm following the main notes here. But see that instead of da-da-da-da-dum, I do da-da-da-da-dum. I go up here, and also doing this with the flute, this kind of sensation of going up until the high notes from the piccolo. So here there's actually nothing new from the original theme that is added, just layering an upper part, choosing our octaves carefully, and basically doing this up until the end. There's no new note here, but see that I'm not playing all of them. So this I register would just come in at certain moments to highlight the important parts of this melody. There's actually just this one moment here. There's this 16 notes here that weren't there in the original. I'm not sure why I did that. And actually, I'm adding some new notes from here, but it's just to lead until to the F sharp here, back here. So it's a little bit of a liberty that I took here, and you might notice it when we hear the full version here. So let's listen to this third version now. So with the exception of this little added group of notes, we again feel like it's just one tutti playing together. But these different appearances of different registers, different groups of instruments, gives this a little bit more flexibility in terms of the colors that we hear and that are created in the arrangement. But again, still we feel just one group of instruments going forward together. And that's what's interesting with this approach. Everybody's there. They're not quite playing the same thing, but they're all playing the same thing, right? And now with my final version, I have the reputation of going crazy with my final version, and that's what happened here. So our fourth version, make this upper layer more rhythmic, supporting it, plus percussions, and yeah. So this upper layer again, the piccolo, the flute, the oboe, and the trumpets. Let's just listen to that at first. So you probably recognize the piece, but it's not the same melodies actually. So for this, I'm really adding new notes now, and I'm not scared to do it up until here. And I'm starting with a little bit of a rhythmic pattern here. And then going into trills, and then going with these arpeggios, and then chords here, the diminished chords from pam 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 pam. I'm trying to highlight the chords that is behind this, and this is done with the piccolo, with the flutes, oboe, and trumpets as well. And oh yeah, I'm also adding the horns here. This parts I forgot, but I changed it to add them with this beep pom 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 beep pom pom to punctuate a little bit more on these chords. But yeah, if you watch carefully, I'm really trying to complement the notes from here. Like right at the beginning, we have C do re, C do re, C do re. We have B, C sharp, and D. So the I rhythmic note. We have the F sharp. So this completes our B minor chord. So I'm just looking at where the notes are free in the chord, and when I'm not necessarily disturbing anything. Like if I would have done see if I would have done the B. Then I would have disturbed this dun 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 dun. Like I would have add like this second, would have made here this second, which is not so bad, but just to have this F sharp here, just makes this a lot more fluid, and also completing that chord in that case is the right choice, I think. Now you'll hear in a second how also rhythmically it's really complementing this original theme. But let's have a look at the percussion as well. So the choice of percussion here is a snare drum, a tambourine, and a triangle. So all of them are contributing a lot for this. You see that the percussion are really something you add usually at the end, because they're easy to write, but they have so much impact on the general sound, general rhythmic of the piece. And I'm doing accents, trying to go between this group of this rhythm of group of 3, and then this rhythm that is more, which is a little bit more unpredictable. Adding as well some little rolls on the snare drums and on the tambourine. I got some on the triangle as well in the second part. Triangle is calming down in the second part, and everybody's doing a big roll at the end to finish together. But see that all of the rhythms are more or less complementary. They don't usually come at the same time. So this is what happened in this first part as well. So finally, let's listen to this full final version of this orchestral tutti. So there you have it. Which version did you prefer? Do you think the last version is the most complete? I sure believe so, but maybe you have other opinions and other ideas to share with me. Please do share them in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. And then again, stay on the lookout in February for my subscription announcement. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.